Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be making this patterned vinyl glitter split tumbler. The cool thing about this is actually a screw-on lid. So if you want to know how I made this, just stay tuned and keep on watching. Hey guys, so let's get started. To get the V-cut shape, I like to take my patterned vinyl and fold it corner to corner. I suppose you could do this with your Cricut, but I've never actually tried it, and I think it would be kind of tricky to do it with the Cricut. So I just like to do this by hand. I fold it corner to corner, and then I kind of squeegee out the edges very, very well. That way, when I do get a cut, I get a clean cut. So to cut this, I go ahead and take out my other mat just to protect my work area. I don't like to cut on the bottom one just because sometimes when I work, everything kind of gets stuck to it, like if I'm working with glitter. So I just get another mat to lay on top and use that to protect instead. So to cut this, I like to fold it where the crease is at and push the ruler up against it and do light strokes with a sharp cutting tool or an X-Acto knife. You could also use one of those little like rolling blades, but I like to use the knife. I find it I get more control from it. So do light strokes and you will get a clean, perfect cut. So for the next step, you want to make sure you kind of measure to see. You could either cut this again, but I kind of just left it. I let it overlap and you weren't really able to see the seams, and I kind of liked how it looked. So I just let them overlap, and when you're wrapping this, you want to peel back the backing off of the patterned vinyl as you're working with it, because if you peel it off in one, like the whole piece, and then you try to add it on, you risk pulling on the vinyl and then it just stretches out the image. And this way you could also have more control of when you're laying it down, and you could push out any air bubbles that get trapped inside. So you just want to be patient with this part and push it out little by little and squeegee out any air bubbles. So for the bottom and top, I take this edge trimmer and I just go ahead and push it up against the blade and twist the cup. The cool thing about this product is that you can also change like the blades to make it either make it like thicker or thinner. So that's the cool part about it, and I just do that to both ends until I get the vinyl off that I need. If you have a small overlap at the top rim, just take your craft knife and just kind of pull on the vinyl just to stretch it out a bit, just to get a clean cut. For the top part of the vinyl, when I took it up against the edge trimmer, I actually did not like how much vinyl I took off. If I were to do this again, I would probably do a thinner part just because I don't like the whole gap it left. I kind of like add like a vinyl strip at the end of the video, but next time around, I think I would just do a much thinner slice at the top. So after that, you want to go ahead and start prepping for your paint. You could either spray paint this, like mask off the patterned vinyl, but I didn't want to spray paint because I would have to do that in my backyard, and I hate putting my dogs in their kennel when I have to do it. So I just wanted something quick, so I decided to do paint. I add a little bit of chalk paint and a little bit of acrylic colored paint just to make the paint more opaque and get better coverage, because if I just go in by the acrylic paint by itself, you could kind of seep through it and you would have to do multiple layers of that. So to prevent that, I went ahead and added a little bit of chalk paint. Painting close to the pattern vinyl, you want to go very slow and be very careful not to get any paint on the vinyl. I actually did not know this, but I got a little bit of paint on the pattern vinyl and I didn't think it would, you know, have a reaction to alcohol, but it actually did. The patterned vinyl kind of got like the paint off of it when I cleaned it up with alcohol. So if you do get paint on pattern vinyl, depending on what it is, avoid cleaning it with alcohol. You could probably just get away with like a smaller paintbrush and some water, or maybe even like a Q-tip just to get the paint off. So for this, I actually only did 2 coats, and that's because I wanted the extra coverage underneath the glitter, because we are going to be adding glitter on top of this color. To speed up the drying process, because I wanted to get this done quicker, I went ahead and took this under my heat gun and it dried up pretty quickly, and then after that's dried, we move on to the next step. Just a quick tip: when you're using a heat gun or any sort of heat on pattern vinyl, you want to move it very quickly, not leave it on there for too long, because it does kind of create like small bubbles. So just to avoid that, do not leave heat on it for a long period of time. For the glitter, there's a couple of methods that you could do. You could either do epoxy method, UV resin, or Mod Podge. I did Mod Podge for this one, and I try to work quickly, because if you ever worked with Mod Podge, it does dry very quickly. So you want to work very fast when you're using this. And when you're adding the Mod Podge, you want to make sure that you do not leave very noticeable paint strokes, because if you do, you will be able to see it through the glitter. And to avoid that, you just want to add thin layers of the Mod Podge. Depending on how you store your Mod Podge, if you store it in the container it comes in, it should be fine. But if you store it in like a squeeze bottle, you might get these like little white dried Mod Podge. Just pick those out, because if you leave them on there, like I said, it's gonna dry and look very, very chunky. Sealing the glitter, you could either do clear spray paint like Rust-Oleum. It's typically what I use, but like I said, I didn't want to spray paint that day, so I just sealed it with clear polyacrylic, and I found mine at Home Depot. I actually used that for my ornaments around Christmas time, so I just pretty much paint it as if it was paint, and that's what I use to seal my glitter. For this, you don't necessarily need 2 coats. I just did 1 coat of this and it was perfectly fine. So for the lid, we're going to be using the same paint that we used for the base of the glitter on the tumbler. And this is actually a screw top lid. So what I did was take the lid apart from the other piece that goes inside of the tumbler, like the screw part, just to make it a bit easier, because I didn't want to have to tape the other part of the lid, because since the lip is so close to the rim of the lid, it would be hard to paint, glitter, and tape. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing here. And I actually did 2 coats of this, and then I sealed it with polyacrylic as well. So the original idea I had for this lid was to add rhinestones, but when I did not like it. So I actually took off the rhinestones, and then I used glitter and UV resin to do the lid, and I liked it a little bit better than the rhinestones, due to the fact that this lid does have kind of like a lip at the top, and I didn't really like how the rhinestones looked with the cup. I feel like it took away from the cup, so I just used glitter and UV resin for the lid instead of the rhinestones. I still add the clip of the rhinestones, you'll still see it throughout the video, but I just wanted to throw that out there. The reason I like to seal these with polyacrylic or any seal is because if you're just using regular acrylic paint and it's not permanent paint, it will wash off when you do wash these lids. So now you want to start with your epoxy layers. I am using 10 mLs of both part A and B, and I just go around the whole tumbler with a gloved hand. Remember, when you're using with any type of epoxy or resin, make sure to always wear proper PPE. After you get a nice even coat, you want to let this spin and cure for, I'd say, 6 to 8 hours, depending on the type of epoxy you're using and the temperature in your work area. As for the lid, I ended up doing the glitter and UV resin method. Unfortunately, I did not film that part. But you could also do rhinestones. They both look pretty. I just feel like it just didn't go with the theme of the cup. It kind of took away from the cup. So I just did the UV resin and the glitter lid. As for the lid, you could use whatever rhinestone size. It's pretty much to your preference and whatever you think works best for you. I know a lot of people use the 2mm as fillers, meaning like if you have a lot of gaps, you could use those to fill in the gaps. Or you could always do like a smaller size where the straw hole's at, and then work your way out with a bigger size rhinestone. For this lid, I used 3mm around the straw hole lid, and then I used 5mm for the rest of the lid. So now we're going to be adding the vinyl strips, and we're going to be adding that to cover up the seam between the pattern vinyl and the glitter. And I just cut this out with my Cricut. I used a square shape, and then I just sized it. I don't remember the size off the top of my head, but I kind of just eyeballed it to see how thick or thin I wanted it, and then I just went with that. Adding these stripes, you want to make them as seamless as possible, meaning where the ends meet, because obviously, I mean, you probably can get away with like one really long strip to cover up the cup, but then you still have to cut it. So when you're cutting this, try to make the seams as seamless as possible. For this one, it was kind of hard due to the way that I added the pattern vinyl. It wasn't the best way to do it, but for the sake of the video, I just wanted to go forward with it. But yeah, when you're adding the stripes to the seams of like the cup, just make sure you try to make it as seamless as possible. When you're working with any type of holographic vinyl, textured vinyl, or even shimmer vinyl, you want to make sure to squeegee it really, really well, because if you don't, when you go and add your layer of epoxy in the corners, it will lift. And then it will be bumpy. It will be kind of hard to get rid of due to the fact that it is vinyl underneath the epoxy layer. So just make sure that when you add this vinyl, any type of vinyl, holographic or textured, you rub it in really well. Now we're going to be adding our layer of epoxy, and again I added a little bit of epoxy additive called Twilight into my epoxy mix, and I believe this is also 10 mLs of both part A and B, making it 20 mLs in total. So just rub that all over the tumbler with the gloved hand, Always remember to wear proper PPE when working with any UV resin, or epoxy, just to protect yourself. Also, this is not the last layer. I did want to add a decal, some sort of quote in between the glitter and where the V cut is at. So I add that after this layer of epoxy. Once you get an even coat of epoxy, let it spin for 6 to 8 hours depending on the type of epoxy you're working with and the temperature in your work area. For my decal, I added that after this layer of epoxy, and then once I applied my decal, I added one final coat of epoxy. That is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you stayed till the end, please comment down below a pink heart emoji, and if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you're notified of whenever we upload a new video. Thank you guys.